Browns legend unleashes on Shedeur Sanders' performance versus Rams. Shedeur Sanders' performance in the Cleveland Browns preseason finale against the Los Angeles Rams had the NFL world abuzz for all the wrong reasons. Shedeur Sanders set out to build on his impressive preseason debut in the Cleveland Browns' final exhibition game against the Los Angeles Rams. 2 weeks earlier, he got the start against the Carolina Panthers, with fellow quarterbacks Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel nursing hamstring injuries while Joe Flacco rested. He took full advantage of his unique opportunity. In preseason Week 1, he finished with 14 of 23 passing for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns against Carolina. That performance spurred a lot of optimism that he could be the Browns' starting quarterback sooner rather than later. That optimism quickly flamed out against the Rams. Versus LA, he completed just 3 passes on 6 attempts, totaling a meager 14 passing yards. He also took 5 sacks and lost 41 yards in the process. His struggles in the Browns' preseason finale elicited plenty of radical takes on both sides of the spectrum. Anywhere from Cleveland should cut Sanders to head coach Kevin Stefanski sabotaged him. Joe Thomas piles on Shedeur Sanders' poor performance against LA Rams. It's undeniable that Shedeur Sanders stunk against the Los Angeles Rams. Whether head coach Kevin Stefanski should have yanked him for Tyler Huntley, who had his contract with the Cleveland Browns terminated shortly after the preseason finale, is an entirely different matter. It's clear, though, that Sanders didn't perform the way he or the Browns wanted. Cleveland legend Joe Thomas recently weighed in on what he saw from the former Colorado Buffaloes star. Unfortunately, we saw a reversion to some of the bad habits from Shedeur in college. I mean, he took a zillion sacks in college, he drifts in the pocket. When he's not feeling comfortable or confident, he tries to escape the pocket from the backside, and teams in the NFL, they watch film. There's a lot of eyes in the sky, there's a lot of guys in the booth that are coaches that can radio down to the sideline and say, "Hey, remember what Shedeur was doing in college? He's doing it again." So instead of rushing to a spot 9 yards behind the center where a quarterback is usually going to put his back foot, rush to 10 or 11 yards. And as a tackle, you can't really push the defensive end any deeper than that without giving up inside rush or a bull rush right on you. So there's really nothing you can do, and it only gets worse. So then the problems compound, and then he keeps trying to back up, and so he was never really able to dig himself out of that hole and those bad habits. Sanders' pocket presence and decision-making were 2 of the biggest knocks on his scouting report coming out of Colorado. Against the Carolina Panthers, he was able to put his accuracy, mobility, and arm talent on display, but it's clear that there's plenty of work to be done before he can be a successful full-time starting quarterback in the NFL. He stepped into the post-game room like a storm you could see coming, slow, inevitable, and carrying the scent of old turf and colder winters. Cameras swung his way like gulls. Microphones leaned in like branches. The legend's face was a map of stadium lights and hard winters, the kind of face that had learned to say more with one long pause than most men could with a speech. "Young man," he began, and it wasn't the start of an insult so much as the first bridge of a lecture. "You're talented enough to make grown men stop and point. That don't mean you can't be taught." The Rams' game had been a broken mirror, plays that glittered and then shattered, a pocket that folded like wet paper, and a benching that sent the town buzzing. The legend could have piled on, ratings demand venom, but he chose something sharper. He chose clarity. He chose to speak like someone who had carried the weight of a city on his back and learned how to set it down without breaking it. "In this league," he said, "you're paid for 2 things, making plays and not making excuses." He tapped his palm against his chest, not to brag about his own resume, but to remind everyone in the room that jerseys carry stories. Every sack's a sentence in that story. You can write a novel or a cautionary tale. He went through the plays like a man tracing a map. Not to humiliate, but to translate. Eyes too high, feet that forgot the rhythm of the storm, a shoulder that invited a hit. He spoke of fundamentals like a carpenter speaks of planes and nails. Basic tools no one notices until a wall falls. "It ain't glamorous," he said, "but the game lives in those inches. You lose the inches, you lose the game." There was fire in his voice, yes, but it was the determined heat of a teacher refusing to let a student waste talent. He remembered his own rookie night, a single play that had taught him the taste of humility, and told the story not for sympathy but for instruction. "I got knocked down too," he admitted. "I remember the feel of the grass in my teeth. Learn from that feeling." It's cheaper than repeating it. He didn't only lecture, he offered a plan. Film room at dawn. Extra reps after practice. A veteran's hand on the shoulder in the weight room. The city needed spectacle, he said. But spectacle without steadiness is like fireworks with no ground to stand on. You can throw a highlight for the ages, he said. But if you can't see the rush, if you can't feel the pocket, that highlight ends up being a memory for someone else's scoreboard. When the cameras clicked and the room hummed with reaction, the legend paused and let the silence do its work. It was an old trick, the kind that smacks of experience, and it worked. The younger players in the room looked smaller and more attentive. Fans tweeting from their couches might have wanted blood. The locker room wanted growth. People will talk, he said, softening. They always do. But what matters is what you do between talk and the next snap. Do the work. Take the hits that make you better, not the ones that break you. Show up when nobody's watching. That's how you pay back the faith. There was tenderness, too, tucked in the hard edges. He spoke of the weight of the Browns' town, how helmets and hope get woven into the same banner. He told the player standing there that mistakes were not a sentence but a doorway if you were brave enough to walk through and do the work on the other side. This city forgives a lot, he said, but it forgives effort more than anything else. Outside the stadium, the internet performed its usual parade of hot takes. Inside, the legend's words settled like sand in a glass, steadying, inevitable. He didn't promise instant redemption. He didn't whisper of miracle turnarounds. What he offered was blunter and truer, a blueprint. A call to grind. A litany of small, repeatable actions that turn raw light into usable fire. Before he left the room, he leaned in toward the young quarterback and lowered his voice. You got the arm. You got the eyes. Now get the grit. Make your mistakes into fuel. Make the next film room a confession and a plan. Do that, and people won't remember this night as failure. They'll remember it as the one that changed you. He walked out then, leaving behind a room that felt both heavier and lighter. Heavy with the truth of critique, lighter with the possibility of redemption. The legend's scolding was an old-fashioned kind of mercy, rough, direct, and posse.